Hello, Uncle Jim here. It's the middle of December and it's time for setting goals. I'm going to share with you what my goals were for this year, how I did, and what I'm going to be doing differently next year. So stay tuned. I think you're going to really enjoy what I have for you today. Okay, I've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. I do want to make a quick market update. The Fed did increase rates by half percent point yesterday, and they did make some comments related to potentially continuing increasing rates. I do think at some point they will pivot. My guess is before summertime in 2023. The interest on the national debt is going to be so expensive, and it's going to crowd out other programs that they won't be able to keep the rates so high. So my guess is maybe April, May, they may start reducing rates or at least holding them steady. I think we're just beginning to feel the impact of the earlier rate increases. So they need to kind of let the market kind of catch up to their increases. And I think once that happens, we'll see, you know, inflation come down even more. And there again, I do think that they will at that point change the direction. Well, that being said, I do want to also mention there have been some reports, inflationary type reports, that has also kind of scared the market. And I believe some earnings recently came out that, or some companies made some projections for next year that were lower, that has also impacted it. So, do I think we're going to hit new lows? I still don't think we're going to hit new lows. I think we probably saw the lows in October. Again, this is my 2 cents. I could be completely wrong. We may get to new lows, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the bear market hit its lowest point in October, and I think it's going to take us a long time, though, to hit new highs. I think we're going to be kind of going sideways and up and down. We're going to have really bad days like today, and we're going to have probably better days. Hopefully tomorrow it'll do a bounce and be it back up, maybe 300-400 points. We can only hope. If it again dips again tomorrow, then most likely we're going to continue going down, and we'll not see a Christmas rally. So that being said, let's actually jump into it. So my goals for the beginning of the year, and I'll go into more detail at the very end of this. I'll jump into my goal setting spreadsheet that I share with all my Patreon members. But my goal early in the year was to make 3,000 a month, and I've been able to do that. I think my average is pretty close to 3,100 a month. And then I've also been able to increase the dividends that I make. My goal early in the year, I think I was making around 1,500 in dividends on a monthly basis. Now I just recently hit 1,800 on average per month. So those two things I'm going to talk about, what I want to do next year. I definitely want to increase those and try to make more option income as well as more dividend income. And this isn't unique to me. I think anyone can do this, and you just have to kind of follow my lead. And I've been on a journey for the last 2.5 years learning the right way to sell options. And I started with trying to make, I think, 500, then I went to 1,000, then 2,000. Now I'm at 3,000. So I think almost anyone can do this. It's not. I'm by no means a financial expert. I'm an amateur, just trying to make more money and trying to find a passive way to do it. I don't want to be on the market not on the market, in the market all the time. I get in and out. I spend it maybe an hour or two, a couple times a week trading, and that's about it. So it's very passive for me. So I encourage people, if this is your first time, you just found this channel, stick with the rest of this video. And I'll go into a bit more detail, but this is something that most people can do, and I think most people should be doing it. So next is about doing a review. I think at the end of the year it really becomes critical to look at how you've done and make plans for the next year. And this also includes looking at your budget, how much you spend. Anyone who's looking at retirement, one of the key factors isn't just how much money you're bringing in, but how much you're spending. So I'm also going to share some information about my budget. Right now, I think I spend between 4,500 and 5,000 a month. I have had some increases this year. I know the Power bills have gone up. I think my taxes went up quite a bit. The property taxes, that is. So we'll go. I'll go into that in a little more detail, and I'll share with you how I do the budgeting and how I look at reviewing. And again, that'll be at the very end of this presentation or this video. So stay with me to the very end. And then another thing I do want to mention is I did get hit by quite a bit of capital gains taxes from last year. With the market, it was kind of the polar opposite of this year. The market went way up, and I ended up making a lot more money than I realized, and I did get hit tax wise. One thing I realized is with Schwab, and I'm sure every brokerage is like this, you can actually see how you're doing with your realized gain and loss. And I wasn't looking at that. I am now. If you're on Schwab, the easiest way to do that is if you go to history, and you actually have two tabs, and one of the tabs is just a general history where you can see all the stuff that's occurred with that specific account. And then on the right tab will be realized gain and loss. And if you click on that, you can actually select the time period. You could select current year, last year. You could pick a specific time period that you want to look at. And that's something I encourage you to do, especially towards the end of the year. If you want to take some losses at the end of the year, you can look at that and see, where you stand. Like currently, I believe I'm right at break even for my two brokerage accounts. I moved a lot of my trading into my retirement accounts so I wouldn't have so much capital gains. I think last year I had over 65,000 in capital gains. So just to give you an example and that's why I got hit. I ended up paying, I think, $7,000 or $8,000 more in taxes. So that's something I encourage you to take a look at. Again, if you're on Schwab, it's right on the history page. It's just the right tab. You just click on it and you can select the details you need. And anyone who's working with any of the other brokerages, my guess is you should be able to do that too. It's the same information that you use. Say you're using TurboTax to export the data out of the brokerage into TurboTax or whatever tax planning software you may be using, or what your accountant uses if you've gotten an accountant who actually does all your tax planning. So, and then I also wanted to share that I also, during this planning period, I look at the strategies that I'm using, and I try to keep things as simple as possible. You'll notice up here I've got the safe option strategies that I like to use, and I primarily use these three: covered calls, cash secured puts, and vertical put credit spreads. I have other videos that share more detail about how I set up cash secured puts and vertical put credit spreads. I do it a little bit different because I always start with a cash secured put, and then if I can buy the outer put, then I will. But I typically like to always have enough cash to pay for anything I'm selling options on. So I don't do what's called naked puts. I always like to have enough cash on hand to be able to pay for whatever stock that I'm looking at selling. And then right below, in the same area up above, I also talk about the guardrails. And to me, these are the other things that I use to be sure that I'm, staying on track and I'm not taking too much risk. Things like picking really good value companies, using a delta. I use two different deltas, and delta is just risk. So a 20 delta is just like you have a 20% chance that the option contract will be assigned, or a 15 delta. Like the 20 delta I use for covered calls, the 15 delta I use for puts, and it's the short put or the put that I sell. So in that instance, I take a little less risk with selling puts than I do calls. And primarily, I've gotten into more trouble, or I've had some more losses related to puts than I've had with calls. And at first, everything was a 20 delta, and I changed that. And I am going to leave that the same. That's worked out pretty well. Any of the puts that I sold early on at a 20 delta, I tended to get in trouble, and anything more recent that I did as a 15 delta, and I've typically stayed out of trouble. So I also talk about limiting the number of contracts. If you're new to this and you're just starting out, or one way to keep the risk down is don't do too many contracts. There's a lot of online people who are, sharing how they do option contracts, and they may do 5, 10, 20 contracts, and you don't need to start with so many contracts. I started with one when I first started selling options, and I went to two, and I typically only do up to two contracts unless it's an inexpensive stock like Ford. A lot of times I'll do three contracts with Ford because it's only like $13, $14 currently. Um, and then also managing your trades. And I've done better with this. I've set up a spreadsheet again that I share with my Patreon members. And if you're curious about becoming a Patreon member, take a look below. I'll have details. I do have two different levels. One, you get all my trades, you get all my spreadsheets, any information that I share here on the videos. I provide. I'm also, you can message me on Patreon. And then the higher one is 25 a month, but that actually includes a weekly one-on-one meeting with me through Zoom and a Discord where you can contact me at any time. Like I get lots of messages, people worried about, what do I do about this stock? What do I do about Tesla? What do I do about Google? Because it's gone down so much recently. And it's nice to have someone that has done that, been there, and can help you make those kind of decisions, because it's important to manage your contracts. You don't just forget them and let them expire. You need to keep track of which contracts are in the money, out of the money, which ones are at risk of being assigned, and not waiting to the last minute. You want to actually actively manage those. I typically do it 2 or 3 weeks before they're getting ready to expire. So, with that being said, let's actually jump into the next part of this worksheet where I'll share my actual plans and goals that I'm setting or beginning to set for 2023. I think in this video, it'll be kind of the start of the process, and maybe next video, either the next one or the one after that, I'll have the actual goals for 2023. I do have some basic goals, but I haven't put enough thought into them, and I'm going to continue to put more thought into them. So let's jump into that next part of the video and stay with me. I think this next part will be even more interesting for you. So stay tuned. Okay, now I've opened up my 2023 planning worksheet or goal planning worksheet. The first page that I've got here is what I've done monthly for this year, and I've actually got it listed literally by month, so you can see most months I did, let's see, first in January I did 3,500, so I did as high as I think close to 3,900, and the lowest is currently 1,532, but that's for this month, and of course I've got a couple more weeks left for this month, so I probably will hit 3,000. So even with only 1,500 in December, I'm averaging 3,088 on a monthly basis, and I brought in a total of 37,000 just in options premium, which again at the beginning of the year my goal was right around 3,000. And so I did a little bit better. My guess is once I've done another probably 1,000 to 1,500 more, I'll be closer to 3,100 to 3,200. So this allows me the ability to kind of figure out what I should look at next year. Do I want to try to do 50% better than that, 25%, 10%? I'm thinking probably somewhere in between that, maybe 20% more. Part of that is thinking, well, hopefully we're coming out of the bear market, and towards the end of next year we may be reaching new highs. Of course, if the recession is a lot worse, then I will not reach that goal. So, but I also don't want to, try to do too low. Like I could say, well, I'll try to do 3,300, like a 10% increase on a monthly basis, and I think that's too easy to reach. So, that's why I'm thinking maybe like a 20 to 25%. So it'd be pretty close to 4,000. I also have here what I did dividend and interest for 2022, and I started off at around 1,500 a month, so 1,573 a month, and I ended with 1,800 by the end of the year. So this month, it looks like I'll earn about 18, on average, about 1,800 on a monthly basis. My goal for next year, again, I'm probably going to look at increasing that maybe 10 10%. A little bit harder to increase dividends, but I do believe I can increase that probably by 10% at least and get to maybe 2,000 on a monthly basis of dividends, or maybe even do better. A lot of it depends on how much cash I'm keeping, and with the bear market, I've tried to keep more cash just as a safety net. Um, so hopefully I can hit 2,000 or do a little bit better. Maybe I'll put the goal as 2,100 just to push myself a little bit more. If you want to add a comment below of what you think I should do, with any of these, with either one, is, what average should I look for options premium on a monthly basis? Should I do 3,500? Should I try for 4,000? Am I being too risky, or am I not being risky enough? Meaning I should be able to do better than this. But the same thing with dividends. I like to answer all my comments, so I will definitely, if you leave a comment for me, I will answer it, or comment back at you. So, and then this is one thing I wanted to add. I use my brokerages, so this money that I've been earning, I've been using. So I've taken out 38,000 more than what I put in or brought in with options premium. And this is like I paid my taxes out of here. I actually typically pay my Costco credit card out of these two accounts, and I also move money over to my bank account. I rarely actually move money from my bank accounts into these accounts. So it's pretty much, I've been able to live off of what I'm producing, and then, been able to grow the accounts too, or the brokerage accounts, on a consistent basis. So this is kind of gives me an idea, my main goals, and we'll look at that here in a second. That way, by looking at this and looking at my numbers and keeping track of everything, it makes it a little bit easier for me to come up with my 2023 goals. So I also have here a checklist. This is part of my goals, is really trying to do better with picking really good companies. I feel like in the last 6 months I've done a lot better. I did have some mistakes like ARKK. It really got hit hard. I do think some of what Kathy Woods invests in with ARKK are good companies. Like, I think Tesla's a good company. I also think Zoom's a good company. But there's a lot of stuff she invests in that I don't know that I agree with. So this is my checklist that I use to evaluate a company. I look at the revenues, the earnings. Does it pay dividends? Is it growing dividends? Where is it debt wise? I prefer companies that have small amounts of debt, meaning, they're not spending or going into major debt to grow. And then, I also look to see if it's optionable, because pretty much anything I own, I like to be able to sell options on, cover calls. So plus when I first pick them up, I like to use the wheel. So, by selling a put and then picking up that stock, with it being optionable, it makes it where you can, depending on where the market currently is, you can go a little bit lower with selling puts. And this is just a note that I added. And I'm just mentioning here, I do have some that broke these rules, and that's because they either pre-existed in my accounts, or, I've recently changed these rules. And I believe I changed these or updated these probably around March or April. So this isn't like I set it in January and just leave it. I try to improve it, improve this selection list, or this checklist, as well as my weekly planning worksheet. So I've got my weekly planning worksheet, and this is the one I released on Monday, and I'm looking to improve on this. So I keep adding columns, changing things, and I use this every week. I share this with my Patreon members, and this is what I use to manage any contracts that are expiring within the next 3 weeks. Plus, at the top, I have favorites that I'm looking at, any companies that I like, and I've got a few here that I shared earlier in the week. One, I just mentioned Zoom, Garmin. This is what I forget what WSM is. It's It's a retail uh, store, Williams Sonoma, and then the last one I can't remember who that is. I think it's Robert Half or something along those lines. Can't think of the name of the company, um, but I share what the current price is. I share what strike, what kind of strategy I'm using, the delta, the expiration, and what I estimate the premium would be. And again, I do this every week. So over the weekend, I typically spend a little bit of time identifying some companies. Now, the ones here are kind of unique. They are all debt free. So all four of these companies, including Zoom, have no debt. So it's kind of unusual, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing because these companies are doing well, but sometimes you want them to use debt. But these four companies have all chosen to be debt free. So, and I found that interesting. So, and again, I try to improve on this weekly planning worksheet, and I'll probably add additional columns and other things that'll make it a little bit easier to work with. Um, and then let's actually jump into the goals. So this is where I have the goals. So these were my 2022 goals, and you can see the top two are in green. So the 3,000 a month, I set that goal early this year, and I was able to reach that. And the same thing with dividends. I was trying to get from 1585 monthly to 1800, and I was able to reach that. Now the goal of was also to grow my accounts or all my accounts by about 8%, and because of the bear market I did not reach that. I think I'm down. I think my high was for all my accounts was like um, I think it was 860, and so a lot of those are my retirement accounts, and I believe right now it's like 790. It may be down another 10 or 12,000 today because of the market having such a huge drop. But I wasn't able to reach that. But I also wasn't as down as much as a lot of other people are. But probably for 2023, I'm looking to at least break even or be up by the end of the year. And again, this is spending. I spent what 37,000 out of these accounts. So right off the bat, I did spend 37,000, and like I said, I use them. Um, I actually have bill pay through Schwab, and I just have been really happy with Schwab. I'm currently bank with Truist as well as Schwab, but I may move everything over to the Schwab and just use Schwab, which you can do that. They have a deal with their debit cards where they reimburse you for any debit charge of any bank, so you could use the cash machines at any bank, and that's one of the niceties that they offer. And they also have a lot of other perks that are a little bit better than a typical bank. So 2023 goals, these are real kind of basic. I just threw them out there. 3,500. Well, maybe I should look at trying to earn 3,500. And again, I mentioned a minute ago, you might not agree. So add a comment if you think that's too low. So if I was able to reach 3,000. I'm probably 3,100 to 3,150. So 3,500 maybe too low. Another goal of increasing my monthly dividends from 1,800 to 2,000. I'll probably stick with that again because it's a little bit more difficult to increase the dividends because I don't want to get rid of all my cash. But I definitely can do better than what I've done. And then the goal of about 8%, maybe I can do about 8%, and that's again living off of spending quite a bit of money out of these accounts, which I typically do. Um, and then other tasks to help achieve goals. Again, good value companies, um, 90 days and less for most trades. And so this is one area that I need to work better on, or do a better job with, is I need to close trades. So, within, I shouldn't go farther than 90 days if I can help it, but I do like to do longer expirations at times, but I do want to see if I can shorten that and do more on a monthly basis than going out more than 90 days. But I want to stick to no more than 90 days. And again, the deltas I'm going to keep the same. I'm going to keep a 15 delta for puts and a 20 delta for calls. And then again, limit the number of contracts. Now I may change this a little bit. I do have um, quite a few shares in certain companies. Like I have, I think 400 or 500 shares in Intel. I have quite a few shares in Coca-Cola, and I may do more covered calls, and maybe do them at a lower delta, like maybe do a 10 or 15 delta, but do more like 5 or 10. I'm playing with that idea. I haven't really quite decided if I'm going to do that. And then last is close contracts with 80% profit. And this is something I can do a lot better with, and I should do a lot better with. I should be closing a lot more of my positions. And I'm actually playing with the idea. I have a couple of different accounts that are different sizes. I have a retirement account that's 80,000. I have another retirement account that's like 45, and I'm thinking of doing different strategies for different sized accounts. And in one of those or both of those, I may always close, say, when I get to 50%. That's something I'm playing with because I want to see would I potentially do a lot better in that case. So, and that's something I'll share in future videos, but that's something I'm really looking at. Um, and then new trades, I didn't do a good job of this. I did have a plan earlier in the year to try every quarter to do new type of trade. I'm going to pick that back up. I did not because of the bear market, do a new type of trade each quarter, but I think I will. And I have done iron condors in the past. Well, I may do some strangles and some things I've never done before. I want to kind of test the waters with a few other types of trades, but again, I don't want them to be too risky. I don't want to take big losses. And then try something unique in a rollover account. Now, again, that's one of my retirement accounts. So, like I said, I ended up getting hit really hard tax wise, so I reduced how many trades I was doing in my regular brokerage, and I'm doing more trades in my retirement accounts. So, that's it. This is something else related to my Social Security, and I just put it here just to kind of keep track of it. And it's something else I encourage people to do to get a feel for, depending on what age, what kind of Social Security you would get. And this includes, my Social Security options premium and dividends at different age ranges. So I'm 57, and I don't think I'll take in Social Security at 62. I'll probably take it at 67 or wait till 70 because I don't want to have a bunch of limitations on how much I can earn because of taking Social Security. So I'll probably delay as much as I can. I did want to share with you guys my budget, and I had shared this in a previous video, but this is the budget I set up. And this, I actually last year went through all my expenses and set this budget up. So it's has all the different monthly charges, and here's the actual yearly, here's the monthly, and I actually went through this and I update this. The items in red are just ones that have increased quite a bit, like health insurance has gone up. I am using the ACA, so that's why some of you are probably saying, well, 275, but it's just for me. And one thing I've learned with ACA, if I take too much of a subsidy, and that's part of why I got hit hard with taxes. I had to pay back some of the subsidies, so I maybe end up doing that again. I don't think so. I did raise the amounts income wise, so but I'm okay with paying the government back if I take too much subsidy. But I did change the calculation. Hopefully that won't happen this time. So I encourage you. Here I can see, well, I'm spending around 42.99 monthly, or 50, what is that, 51,588 a year. And here I just have other stuff that I use. This is actually where I use the 4% rule, and it's kind of where I play with retirement and how much I could bring in at different ages if I use the 4% rule. And typically what I found, and again, there was a previous video where I shared this in more detail. I'll find a link to that and have that below. But this has given me the ability to relax a little bit more and to realize I've got enough. I am financially independent, even though I'm still working, but I choose to do things I want to do that I enjoy doing. So, like this YouTube channel, I want to teach people how to do this stuff. So, this is the budget I use. Again, this is available to any of my patrons. Um, if you have any questions, it's not that difficult. I've also used online tools, like I believe Dave Ramsey has a tool. I tried that for a while, and it worked out pretty well. They have a free version, but I just found doing this myself has worked out just as well. So again, thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I hope you have a wonderful day.